mean that guys like Lawrence Okoli, and especially if it's your right eye, if Jake's getting hit in his right eye, that usually would mean that he's getting jabbed, because that jab in orthodox would come out from the left hand on the right eye side.
And that experience would have been somewhat of a dawn of realization upon Jake Paul that this is actually happening now. So to an extent, I'll be honest, I actually feel sorry for Jake Paul. I mean, I don't.
Jake Paul was reportedly knocked out by a heavyweight sparring partner while preparing for his fight against Anthony Joshua. He recently revealed a bruised, swollen eye, saying it happened during sparring with Lawrence Okoli.
Keep it going. Way too long. There you go. Good round, Jake. Check that.
Joey Knight highlighted that Jake Paul had been training with top heavyweight fighters including Lawrence Okoli, Frank Sanchez, and Jared Anderson. During these sessions, Paul displayed noticeable injuries, indicating the extreme intensity of the sparring. Knight described this period as Paul's toughest week, pointing out that the sheer power and skill of his sparring partners resulted in significant damage. The bruises and marks visible after these workouts underscored the physical toll of preparing for a fight against someone of Anthony Joshua's caliber. Knight's observations suggest that Paul is facing challenges far beyond what he has previously encountered, as even controlled sparring sessions with elite heavyweights can inflict serious injuries and test his readiness for the ring.
Ranked Lawrence Okoli. That is who Jake Paul has been sparring with over these past few weeks.
Trouble finding Hussein Mohammed early on.
And a lot of you guys will know this because Jake Paul showed the bruises and marks on his face and said that it was Lawrence Okoli that had done that. And faces don't necessarily tell you how a spar went. Some guy can have blood all over him, he can have a busted up nose, but he still won the rounds in sparring. But I can only imagine that this week has been a very, very humbling experience for Jake Paul. In fact, the past few weeks will have been eye-opening for Jake Paul. A past few weeks where he has sparred the likes of Lawrence Okoli, of Jared Anderson, and of Frank Sanchez as well. And being that I have seen Jake Paul go life and death with Tommy Fury, you can guarantee you that Okoli, that Anderson, and that Frank Sanchez have basically manhandled Jake Paul in there. And that experience would have been somewhat of a dawn of realization upon Jake Paul that this is actually happening now. So to an extent, I'll be honest, I actually feel sorry for Jake Paul. I mean, I don't, because then I remember the 70-odd million that he's reported to be earning at the end of this fight. But you can't deny, right, that in a world where these almost fantasy fights and whatnot are making such a shitload of cash, that Jake Paul's probably being paid in line for this fight, actually. And the reason I say he's being paid in line is because I really don't think it takes a genius to work out where I'm going with my prediction for this fight. And that is obviously, no, in fact, drum roll, please. AJ via knockout, obviously, technical knockout, if
Jake Paul's recent decision to spar with elite heavyweights has drawn intense scrutiny from boxing analysts and fans alike. While Paul has gained fame for taking on notable opponents, his preparation for a fight against Anthony Joshua has revealed just how steep the challenge will be. Training footage shows Paul facing immense power from heavyweight sparring partners, highlighting weaknesses that were not apparent in his previous bouts. Wade, a respected boxing analyst, points out that Paul's sparring sessions expose a massive vulnerability. He reportedly got knocked out during practice, suggesting that he struggles to handle the raw strength and punching power of experienced heavyweights. This raises questions about whether Paul's confidence aligns with his actual readiness to face a former heavyweight champion like Joshua.
Question is, which one of those two things is happening? And question is, how is it going down? Because what we know about Anthony Joshua is that he has a nasty lead hook, and he's going to have a reach advantage on Jake, just like Lawrence Okoli does in the gym, which is why Jake has brought him in. So that jab's going to be effective. That lead hand of AJ is going to be effective. How does Jake maneuver around that? And again, you can look at this a couple of ways. One, okay, you get hit with it in camp, so you don't get hit with it in the fight, which is why you bring these heavyweights in. It's why you bring Jared Anderson, Lawrence Okoli, Frank Sanchez in. Or two, there's a massive flaw in what Jake's doing, that he's continually getting hit with this, and the indication that he's getting hit by Okoli means he's going to get hit the same way with Anthony Joshua. I tend to believe a little bit of both, right? You do this so that it doesn't happen, but also how much can Jake really learn and to avoid something that's coming out with the jab or with the lead hook, or just again the distance control and the range of a guy like Okoli and a guy like
Video of Paul sparring indicates that he has repeatedly been hit on the chin by heavyweights, leaving visible marks and showing the physical toll of these sessions. The intensity of training with fighters such as Lawrence Akoli is far beyond anything Paul has previously encountered. Observers note that the combination of power, size, and technical ability in these sparring partners is exposing limitations in Paul's defense and resilience. 6 feet 4 inches 65.
He isn't 250 pounds. He's not a natural heavyweight. And you could say that's an advantage to Jake. He's going to be able to move around a little bit. Again, we'll talk about his feet in a second. But it's more to me the fact that what we're not seeing is the biggest weakness of Jake's, on top of the fact that he's gotten an eye smashed up in sparring. They said Frank Sanchez made his nose look like a crescent moon. We'll get to that in a second. Lawrence Akoli is giving him a freaking shiner in sparring. So again, you could say that's great work from Jake to be able to have these high-level guys come in, but you also have to admit that he's getting hit, and he's getting hit a lot by guys that aren't Anthony Joshua in terms of their skill and ability, or at least not at the highest level that AJ has been to.
But we brought in world champion heavyweight sparring partners, guys who are 270 pounds, 250 pounds. Sparring them, has been insane. I still got the remnants of
I see you taking a little shot there. I like that you're taking the...
Castillo, a well-known analyst, describes the situation bluntly, saying that stepping into the ring with Joshua will be brutal for Paul. He suggests that even with the rigorous sparring sessions, Paul's chances of withstanding Joshua's knockout power are extremely slim. Castillo notes that if Paul manages to survive even 3 rounds with Joshua,
I think it could go, honestly speaking, if Jake can last 3 rounds, in a way he's kind of won a mental victory, because I'll be real, I think everybody's expecting AJ to come there and blast him out in 1 round. But I think a moral victory would be if Jake just lands 1 stun punch on him. That would be good enough for him. But kudos to Jake Paul for even doing this, because honestly speaking, I'm not going to lie to you, one of the greatest moments that I've witnessed in boxing history, and I know Jake Paul is obviously an influencer, and I'm a boxing fan. I love boxing. So this is a bit weird to say that this is quite a huge moment, but just when he came out last year, and he came out with his brother, and he came out on a little rider, I got goosebumps, because in that moment I said to myself, how can anybody watch this and not feel like dreams can't come true? He must even surprise himself looking at that and think to himself, how on earth am I even here fighting Mike Tyson? And one more thing, even speaking of that, I give him a lot of respect for not knocking out Mike Tyson, because he could have. And so I respect him for that. So against AJ, and for AJ as well, AJ gets a lot of flack, but at the same time, I think AJ's he's about 35, 36, 37 right now. He doesn't really have anything else to prove right now, so why not cash out with a big fight again?
It would already be considered a significant achievement. The implication is clear. Training with heavyweights can provide experience, but it cannot fully prepare someone for the sustained pressure, skill, and power of an elite former champion. The gaps between influencer boxing, carefully managed matchups, and the reality of a world-class heavyweight bout are vast.